Hello, this is CityScape, a regular podcast featuring places, people, and ideas that impact Livonia. I'm Dan West with the Livonia Chamber of Commerce. We are going to get into a heavy subject today, but it is a necessary discussion. Local hospital emergency centers are seeing an influx of patients attempting suicide, overdosing on drugs, dangerously intoxicated, and are suffering panic attacks. Sadly, some teens have ended their lives. We are seeing a growing concern about mental health before the pandemic, and pandemic life and conflicts we've seen in society and over the past year have made things worse as many people when it comes to their emotional well-being. Today we are joined by experienced certified professional counselor Melissa Tolstyka, who is the clinical director of Hegira Health based here in Livonia. Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you describe to us what your workload has been like for the last few months?
Sure. Well, going back to the start of the pandemic, 15 months ago, we had to switch to a complete remote platform. And that was very challenging for all of us as we moved into that necessary function as behavioral health providers in the community. As time progressed, we became experts in that. And certainly now, though, what we're seeing is a reemergence of our staff back into the office. Staff are wanting to get into the office and see people face to face and have that connection. Our workload was pretty tumultuous for a while there, for sure. So we spent a lot of time looking at various ways to reach people in the community, to engage people, to continue to have them come into treatment that we know over the last 15 months was necessary.
Why has pandemic life over the last 15 months been so tough on people and their mental health?
Well, let's start off with we've never been in a pandemic before. Our generations
Sure.
of individuals. So this was something that none of us could have ever thought would have happened. Along with the pandemic, as you alluded to earlier, there were several issues that occurred over the last year, including racial injustice and tensions. We had a very negatively charged political climate, and everybody had their own belief of the way things should be related to the pandemic. I think it was tough because we had to switch to a remote platform. We had to switch to virtual all across the board with school, with work. And while it maybe benefited some individuals, certainly I think a majority really felt that it was a struggle.
With virtual learning, as you just mentioned, and limited social activities, our children have spent a lot of time alone in their rooms. What is an appropriate way for a parent to effectively and appropriately check in on their kids?
Well, it's really difficult. What we hear often is, the stereotype that children are moody and this is just what they do as teenagers and whatnot. But with the pandemic and especially what we've seen with children and their mental health lately, parents do need to take a different approach. The best approach is really that communication. How can you have those discussions with your child? What do you need to say to draw them out of that isolation in their rooms? I think structure is very important, but parents are also having to really take a look at a lot of stressors in their own life. Mm-hmm. So the pandemic, while it impacted children, we know that parents were significantly impacted. Perhaps there were unemployment issues or housing issues or stress within the family structure, within their marriage. So having to unpack all of that is a lot. Setting up boundaries with children is really important. So while it's okay for a child to be in a room, perhaps for a little while, we want to make sure that we're drawing them out and having a very structured family process or time together. That could be dinner, which I know a lot of kids are on their cell phones and doing their thing. Parents are as well. Family needs to have set time to unplug, to do an enjoyable activity together, to find out and engage the child again in things that they were interested in, and maybe find a virtual way to do that too. So while we were shut down, there were still a lot of opportunities to do things and connect with people on the outside through a virtual platform.
As a parent of maybe a kid that's having a really tough time, what are some of the key behaviors a parent may observe that should cause a parent to act, and what would be some of the first steps a parent would take?
Sure, that's a great question, and I think one we hear often. So there are a lot of warning signs, risk signs out there to look at. We hear a lot about depression, and that really does seem to be the key. People talk about depression all the time, but there's also a lot to be said about anxiety. There are different types of anxiety that also can seem like just stress, but it really isn't. Some warning signs, obviously isolation, we should talk about isolation in two ways, right? So we're isolated because we're home, but as you mentioned, kids go into their rooms, they shut the door, you don't see them. So if isolation is out of control, if you see it frequently, depressed mood, down mood, sad, withdrawn, suddenly not talking to their friends, whether that be virtual or in face-to-face, quitting something that they enjoyed before. Quitting a sport or acting or painting or whatever they enjoy doing is something that needs to have more discussion. I'm certainly looking at their appetite. Are they eating more? Are they eating less? Are they sleeping more? Are they sleeping less? And we know that teenagers specifically, their sleep cycles are a little off, but if you notice that it's continuously, if they're constantly tired, just a down mood, not really engaging in conversation, those are all kind of those warning signs that require more discussion and in a non-judgmental way. So we don't want to say, get up, get going, let's move, right? We want to talk about what's happening in their lives. I noticed that you've been sleeping a lot more than normal. Let's talk about that. And then how to act on that. Obviously we want to maybe talk to a professional. As I, said before with people that I've served in the past, let's get you in to see a physical health doctor. Let's go see a primary care physician, because we need to make sure that your physical health is in good shape as well, because oftentimes there could be a physical element that is causing, maybe depression or anxiety as well. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the whole picture of the individual.
We talk about, obviously, young people being stressed, but parents are stressed too. You mentioned this a few moments ago. They're dealing with family issues, work issues, their personal relationships, other stresses. Watching headlines every day can be stressful. What can adults, parents, people do to better manage all these tensions?
That's a really hard question because, everybody is so different and they manage their stress in different ways. Turn off the TV. That's the first thing to do, right? But really try to think about, how you can de-stress, how you can take a look inward and find out what's going on within yourself. Mindfulness activities, as I said earlier, maybe going for a walk, doing something that you enjoy and getting back to that. There are a lot of things we enjoyed before the pandemic that we can't do anymore, although we're starting to kind of, as I said, reemerge into that. So really taking a look at what you enjoy, what you can do, and then really carving out the time to do it. And that's the challenging part because you are managing so many things. A lot of us experienced grief and loss over the last year. So maybe looking at that and how it's impacting your life and your stress level, taking time for yourself to go to a grief group or to engage in therapy yourself. We talk about stigma, we talk about wanting to make sure the kids are okay, but if we're not okay, we can't really help our children like we want to. We are there, they're looking to us for that support and guidance. And if we're showing them that we're getting the help that we need to, that will help them feel more apt to do that in the future.
Maybe for some people that haven't had a traditional way of managing things or consistent habit for stuff, can you name one quick, simple thing someone could do starting today, take a few minutes to maybe slow things down in their brain so they can better deal with the stress in their lives?
I would say one key point would be just to take 5 minutes and breathe. Ground yourself, and then start planning ahead. So, when we're planned, we're better prepared and more organized to do the things that we want to do, and carving out that time for ourselves is pivotal. It will really help manage the rest of your day. You can do it certainly in the morning, first thing in the morning, to help ground yourself to do that.
And that's vital because it's very hard for you to take care of somebody if you're not taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
So, Melissa, thank you for your time today and your expertise on this very, very important subject. And God bless you for all the work that you do in this area.
Thank you.
That'll be it for this edition of CityScape. We thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.